Well, I think it's a mixed message. There's tended to be a view that suburban development, spread out cities, are a product of the motor car, of cheap energy. And although that's true, the suburban landscapes are no denser in human settlement than some of the densest settled intensive agricultural landscapes in the world. Now, admittedly, people living in those modern suburbs consume far more resources in total than people who lived in those densely settled agricultural landscapes. Like somewhere like the Red River Delta in Vietnam, it's higher density of people, just living more or less totally self-sufficient off that land than Australian suburbs. Now, of course, they're very special environments. They're all fed by integrated water systems, fertile alluvial flat land. But similarly, we can look at our suburbs and say they are an infrastructure. They have a water supply system. Our cities are the biggest reticulated agricultural landscapes, if you like, in Australia. So the water is there. We have an infrastructure of hard surfaces that actually harvest stormwater, which of course is seen as a problem at the moment, which allows augmentation of natural rainfall to direct that water into the remaining areas that are potentially productive. We've got mostly individual houses that can be retrofitted to have solar access because they're generally far enough set back from neighbouring houses to be able to get that. Now, that might involve cutting down a lot of gum trees and other things in those leafy suburbs. But there's a lot of ways in which the suburbs can be incrementally retrofitted in an energy descent world. And one of the things that I think a lot of the urban planners miss is they assume that any future framework will be driven by public policy and forward planning and design. Whereas I think, given the speed with which we are approaching this energy descent world and the paucity of any serious consideration or planning or even awareness of it, we have to take as part of the equation that the adaptive strategies to it will not happen by some big sensible long-range planning approach, but will happen just organically, incrementally, by people just doing things in response to immediate conditions. So if you live in an apartment in a multi-storey building, and you've got to work out how to try and retrofit that in an energy descent context, there's a lot of complex technical infrastructure involved. There's a lot of complex organisation and coordination with the mutual owners or whoever the owners of that building are, and it's very technically complicated. In the suburbs, people can actually just start changing houses and doing things, give or take how they manage the planning regulations and whatever, without the whole of society agreeing on some plan. And so that, I think, is a really key aspect, that the suburbs are amenable to this organic, incremental, adaptive strategy where someone does something here and then other people learn from that, and where we don't say, yes, we need all of this laid out, the great plan, the roadmap, because I think there is a great danger in, if you look historically, at people who think they've got this great plan for how, it's all going to work, and just be really wary about those people, and whether they're sort of, the great plan for the pure Aryan race, or the great plan for many other things. I think we've got to have a lot more faith in incremental or organic processes. In practical terms, what that really means is that big suburban houses that have 1 or 2 or 3 people living in them, and mostly not present, will actually, people will readapt to live and work from home sort of situation. So, look, home-based businesses, people take the double garage and dump the cars out, which won't be so useful, and actually set those up as workshops, making things. Backyards, again, will have food production in them. And the street, which is a dead place at the moment in suburbia, will again become an active space because people will be present rather than commuting away all the time. Now, that recreation of active urban life would be not that much different from what existed prior to and even into my childhood in the 1950s. I mean, it's not really a radical thing to envisage suburban life where there's larger households. Now, whether that's a family or whether that's some sort of shared household where people are taking in boarders to sort of help pay the rent or the mortgage or whatever, and help share the tasks that need to be done in a larger, more self-reliant household. So I'm quite optimistic about how the suburbs can be retrofitted in an energy descent world.